Well, hello. Today is the 2001 Vietnam War movie, Under Heavy Fire. 25 years after the Vietnam War, a Marine Rifle Company returns to Vietnam. We soon find out that there is animosity toward their former captain. Through flashbacks, we see their story. The new Captain Ramsey initially gains their respect through his leadership. They visit the tunnel complex, which is now a tourist site. Flashbacks show that Ramsey and another rescue one of the Marines captured by the VC in this tunnel complex. They visit their former base, which is also now a tourist site. They visit Hue, which was captured by the NVA during the Tet Offensive, and the scene of much brutal urban fighting. The company was forced into this urban fighting during the war. They accidentally shoot some civilians caught in the crossfire. This alienates them from their captain. Some decide to mutiny and refuse to go down a road they think is unsafe, instead opting to cross a rice paddy. Only the NVA are set up in ambush across from that paddy. Artillery fire is called down, mistakenly on the rebellious Marines. They agree to reenact the event, and some plan to assassinate the captain. So this is a 2001 Vietnam War movie. It was directed by Sidney Furie, and it's actually considered a trilogy of Vietnam War movies that he did. Others being The Boys in Company C and The Veteran. And I have both of them, and someday I will do those. This is kind of one in the middle. It's probably the best. Although I think Purple Hearts is probably his best Vietnam War movie. And it was made for TV on a 13 million, I guess, Canadian budget. And it was filmed actually in Vietnam and the Philippines with some post-production in Canada. Now, I think this is a pretty enjoyable movie. I know it came in part of a 12-pack. It was actually one of the two movies in that 12-pack I actually wanted. And I think this was originally titled Going Back, apparently, but they decided Under Heavy Fire was a better title. And it had Casper Van Diem. And it skillfully uses, kind of both filming in contemporary times with flashbacks to the war, mixing them both together. The idea being that they were originally back in 1968 filmed like for a documentary, so they're going back as a company once again and getting for another documentary. And one thing I found really fascinating about it was actually seeing Vietnam in more modern times. You can see like they're visiting all these sites, which are now like the tunnel complex and their base and probably battlefields. They're all now like tourist sites, which be kind of fun to visit, I bet. And I think mostly the combat scenes are probably filmed in the Philippines because the Philippine Army probably has more experience being the North Vietnamese Army than the North Vietnamese Army ever got. They've been filming so many Vietnam War movies throughout the decades in that country. And, I think it's obviously, one thing I did notice is it's very positive with Vietnam. Probably that's kind of one of the reasons they had to film it. Got permission to film it in the country because they showed as a very forgiving people, and well, maybe they are because probably most of the population wasn't even born when the war was on now. And only really the atrocities are kind of done by Americans or South Vietnamese. I mean, they kind of had this pointless scene where someone decided to drop 50 dead VC on a village as some kind of punishment, which didn't really make much sense. I mean, you could always talk about, in Huey, that the North Vietnamese basically rounded up thousands of supporters of the South Vietnamese government, executed them, but otherwise, it's a pretty enjoyable movie. I think, it basically the main plot was that there was some tension between the captain, played by Van Diem, who they fought deliberately, called artillery on them because they mutinied. And, I won't give away the ending because maybe you want to watch this. But it did have a very positive ending at the end, so. And, interesting, most of all the actors, they played older they got different actors for the old soldiers, except Van Diem, who they kept for both, the young one and the old one. They just kind of dyed his hair gray or something to look older. Interesting enough, I think, that's probably how Casper Van Dien looks nowadays, because I've seen a movie that he recently did, and he pretty much looks the same, except he has gray hair, so he aged quite well. And I think it's, a very emotional movie. I thought, there was obviously, people visiting that country would probably have some serious emotions, and they did a pretty good job of it. And I know Sidney Furie, obviously, like I say, he did some other Vietnam War movies. It's like supposedly his trilogy, and I think it came in the middle, and I think it's the best of the trilogy that he did. He's a Canadian guy. He's directed a lot of movies, interesting ones I watched, I liked, like Iron Eagle, and he also, infamously directed Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. But everybody gets some bad ones sometimes. So, yeah, this is a good movie. I think it's worth your time if you enjoy good war movies. And if you stuck with me this long, I thank you. You're a unique individual.